All right, I'm really excited to have our guest today. We have Idit Kalisher, who's a fantastic economist. So, Edie, tell us a little bit about why we're talking to you specifically, a little bit what you're doing now, and a little bit about your economic experience.
All right. Well, an economist. I have a PhD in economics. I work as a policy researcher in the Aaron Institute for Public Policy, and I focus on the Arab population in Israel, mainly in their education. And I also wrote a children's book based on the foundation of economics, and I'm like a liberal activist for about more than 10 years.
Awesome. And we'll get to the book, which I bought and I read to my daughters. It's a kid's book. It's fantastic. But first, tell us a little bit kind of like how we got here and where you did. So I met Edith at the Freedom Conference a few months ago. Discovered that she was on the Greenleaf Party, which focused a lot on obviously liberty, particularly when it came a lot. One of their main things, obviously, by the name Greenleaf, is about the legalization of marijuana and being able to get the government out of your life as much as possible. Since then, and now you're active. You're trying to get back involved in politics. Would that be a right way of putting it?
Oh, yeah, that would
So,
be a right
so
way.
what are you up to now? So we can make this relevant to the present tense.
Well, actually, I see the new party, which is the Economic Freedom, with Abir Kara in the head of it. We are focusing on lowering the cost of living in Israel. And our what we want to do is strictly economic. We only speak about economics and in ideas of the free market and free economics and liberty of rights, and we deal with housing, with transportation, education, legalization, bureaucracy and regulation. And basically what we want to do is to to lead Israel to a freer economic, to freedom. So everything here would be less with less government intervention, and we believe it would be for the best.
No, I think we know
Yeah,
is for the best.
we
And
we,
I
we
don't,
know. Yeah,
and it's not just those
and
in the party. You speak to any Israeli, any walk of life, any political affiliation, they will complain about the bureaucracy and the fact that, and how the government's involved in overtaxation and the cost of living. And the fact that this is kind of universal, and has yet to be properly addressed is mind numbing. So we just had a government that was from very right to far left to Islamist.
mhm.
And when it seems like the one thing everyone agrees on is cost of living and bureaucracy. Would you say they made any progress there?
Well, first of all, I do believe there was a progress, even if in the means of speaking about it, the conversation about it. And you can see the reforms in the agricultures and
Yeah.
reform in imports. So these were very important steps towards a more free economics, and also um, deregulation of small businesses regulation. So there has been a lot of advancement, and I'm pretty optimistic about the future because most of these reforms were related whether by leading or by participation with Abir Kara, which
Mhm.
he is the head of our party. So imagine what he did. Think about what he did when he was. I'm sorry, bad connection. Are we back?
We're back. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Um, so when I think about what he managed to accomplish when he was there, and didn't have a lot of support, so I'm pretty optimistic that we could do a lot more if we get in the Knesset next after the elections, and we have not just one person there, but 4 or 5.
Right. That would be awesome. So, okay, so you're saying there were some reforms that were done. Is it just me, or are people, and I think Jews in particular, are way too impatient and they want a revolution, right? We're like, we want it all now, right? I think this is
No, I
No, you don't think
disagree.
so?
I disagree
You
because
think people were willing to take, you think people are patient enough for incremental reform? Do they,
I,
because I feel like they don't feel it enough and they don't see it enough and they get too impatient and then they might, God forbid, suggest things like more government intervention to solve issues.
no, I think it depends with who you're speaking to and what is the community that you're relating. Because I think most of the people here are in a paradigm that it's really hard to change, that the government is like a Patreon that needs to take care of you. And if some like education, if education would be privatized, then there would be no one to supervise the children, would be just walking around the streets. The change, it seems to them so so large and so like they cannot comprehend it. They cannot like it's like everything or nothing. Either the government is centralized in the education, or if it's private, there will be no education. And that's why they need the steps. They need, okay, you see, if we do, it's like now you have the anthroposophic and the Montessori and the democratic. It it's kind of new. Maybe it's not the last, I think maybe 20, 25 years, but it's a really small portion of the education system.
Uh-huh.
But it's like steps towards more freedom of choice. But I think we need to step it up.
What's stopping people from moving forward? Is it politics to introduce more choice and more options? Do you think is it protectionist? Is it socialist? I mean, I feel like what's stopping us from the last government or the next government or when Bibi, who understands economic in a sense, the economic freedom in a sense, by more than most people in the Knesset, what's stopping us from advancing, making the significant advances? We're at a point where I find people that are huge Zionists considering making Yerida because of the cost of living that they would like to earn an income. In my opinion, with some significant reforms that can be done in one government, Israel can be probably the wealthiest country per GDP per capita, probably within within a generation, within a decade or two, easily. Not to mention and the freest. It's really not hard. It's not like America where you need to undo the brainwashing of a lot of people that went to college that were taught to think backwards, right?
I would have to stop you here.
Yeah, I was waiting for that because I know you're in education. Good.
I would have to stop you here. Well, first of all, I think it's a combination of some of the things you said. It's on one hand, you have like lobby of some groups, and they're trying to convince the public that their view is right and they need to protect themselves. And there's the education system. I won't say that it's a brainwash, but it's like a dogmatic education or indoctrination that the state of Israel is the one who needs to look out for education. And what you get in school, you get that. You should always look out for one another and give from yourself. It's like, it's true. You need to teach children how to cooperate and how to be not humble, compassionate, and to give to others. But it's like the individualism is wrong. You first need to think about everyone else, and then you need to think about yourself, which could be true in some cases. I don't say that I always think about myself, and my action would prove that I sometimes put myself last in a priority. But I need to know that I'm choosing to do that.
Correct.
And
right.
also,
So it comes from you.
and
When
also,
yeah, go ahead.
just a second. And also, you get in the education system and you get into this path when you've been told to listen to the grown-ups and do what they say, and everything will be all right. And then when you go from elementary school to high school, and then you need to listen to the one that is superior to you. If it's not a teacher, that the commander in the army, and you get into this like path that you know that there's the government and they take care of you and they would secure your health, your education, and so on. And when you need to, and when you start, you don't, if there's no, not, if there is no trigger to switch something that would make you think otherwise, then it's really convenient to walk in this path.
Hmm.
I myself was in this path, and it was obvious for me that I'm listening to everyone. They're telling me what to do in high school, and then I went to the army, and then I went to the trip, and then I know I need to get my BA. And all the time I was like looking where the government can help me, what can I get from the government, not thinking about that for the government to give something to me, I'd have to pay for it. If it's not now, maybe it's later. But
Right.
then when you start realizing it, okay, for it's really difficult to change the way you think. It's like a process that I wasn't such a liberal from day one. It's a
Right.
process that I went through.
So should we be teaching this in schools? Like, I'm like, how and when would one introduce that you should take on personal responsibility? The government shouldn't be the one to look after you. That way, you'll be able to earn more. You'll have more freedom. You'll have a much more enjoyable, meaningful life, and you won't be dependent on a government that half of the time you hate. Is there
Well,
under what? How would we teach that?
well, first of all, it's something that primarily needs to come from home,
Mhm.
because there's no there's not an optimal age, like a best age to start with. If I could say, I would start, like, if I'm thinking about myself, I started talking about choices and responsibility with my kids the minute they started to show some kind of self-awareness and self desires. And I, like, I don't know, age of 2.5, something like that. But if you think about the education system, because it's like it's given, we have this education system, and what do we do with it now? So I would say, I think that from even kindergarten or grade first grade, it's not it doesn't have to be economics teaching, but decision making and realizing, because economics, if you go to the basic of it, it's actually the foundation of decision making. So when you teach children those principles, and you build with them the decision making, like the decision making muscle, I call it in Hebrew. And then when you start talking about economics, meaning the trade and resource allocation and all of that, it's easier to understand the free market, because you have the foundations of decision making, and you know when it's good to cooperate, when it's better to do things on your own. And it doesn't matter if it's to cooperate when you build a house and with Lego, or you're making homework, or you're now trying to produce something and sell it. So I think the minute you think about economics or decision making with kids, start talking about it with the kids.
Mhm.
And I've been
Maybe we
asked
should
a
talk about,
lot.
I think, why don't you plug your book? Because you have a kid's book that I read that's great, which I couldn't find. I flipped my
Yeah, I
house
will tell
upside
you.
down in order to
Mhm.
find by Ya'ar, right? Which means
Yeah,
in the forest.
yeah.
And so you're talking about like people learning, okay, you need to start at home. But the thing is that in order for it to start at home, you need to educate the parents. And the parents also need to be passionate about it. And you don't, and one of our basic principles is that you shouldn't be able to force and coerce other people what to do. So there's
Mhm.
a, so how does one get this out there other than trying to maximize conversations and things like this, that we're, having these conversations and putting it out to the public? How do we really help the next generation? Is it is it a is it hypocritical to mandate, or inconsistent rather, to mandate this kind of learning in government schools?
Yeah, this is what I wanted to say. So I have this conflict between getting in schools and teaching it, because teaching economics in the free economics point of view, because it's like indoctrination, but now I
But the
agree
good
with this.
kind, right?
Yeah, but
like
but
everyone says.
it's really, it feels like some kind of hypocrisy. But given that the education system does have classes about economics and financing and those kind of subjects, I do try to at least influence from above. Like I was speaking at the education committee of the Knesset a few months ago, and they were talking about financial literacy in
Oh,
schools.
that's awesome.
So uh, I I I don't know if I agree with that, because
Is their approach wrong, or you don't agree to teach
bec-
it?
no, I don't know, because a lot of times when you, there's also research about this thing, but think about children when they go to class and they study some things. What happened after the exam? What a lot of
You
time,
forget 95% of it by the next
because
day.
they get, because
They study for the
usually
exam.
yeah, because usually they study and they get the knowledge. They don't get the practice. They don't get I forgot the word. Um,
The
skill.
experience. Yeah,
The
the skills. Right,
skill.
right.
It's like
Mhm.
a skill. So if you don't develop the skill of decision making and the skill of using the economic principles, then you would know what is interest, and you would know what is a loan, and you would know how to choose between loans or between a deposit, the saving deposits or something like that. But once you finish with that, you will not practice it anymore, because you would maybe go to the bank and open your account, and then that's that. But when you practice the skill of economic thinking, then it doesn't matter if you use it for financial literacy or for decision making or for anything other that you can think about with resource allocation.
Okay. So
So
why not maybe?
okay.
Yeah, yeah. But so I'm thinking, because look, education and finance, like my two favorite subjects. I have a lot of interest. I studied finance in my undergrad. I went to Temple University in Philly. Actually, I still have the bottle here, and at the Fox School of Business. And I remember after my sophomore year in the summer, I was at my mom's house, and she was writing a check, and I asked her, "Oh, can you show me how to write a check?" And then she was flabbergasted. She was like the amount for tuition, and you don't even know, and you're studying finance, and you don't even know how to write a check. And I was like, whoa, 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 hold on, you pushed me to go to college, right? And she was like stunned. I was like, there's no big, and I'm studying finance, right? So I didn't learn in high school when I went to good high school. I didn't learn in college. I didn't study when I'm studying finance. Here I have to learn from home. I think there maybe we can create an entrepreneur class that's a year long, where you break out and you do kind of, I'm just throwing shit out here, right? Kind of like what The Apprentice was, right? Like different teams, and let's create little different businesses,
Oh,
whether
there
it's a
are some
lemonade
programs
stand.
that, it depends, but you have those programs in school. It's not a mandatory program, because not all schools do that. But you
Why don't
have,
all schools do that?
first of all, it maybe it doesn't fit for all schools. I don't know if maybe art school would find it interesting.
I think they need it.
So
They need it
I
more
don't
than
know.
anyone.
Yeah, yeah, but I don't. But this kind of entrepreneurship, it doesn't fit. Not everyone could do that. Not
No,
everyone is
I
interested
understand,
in
but
that.
one
And
needs
also, just a second, it's also about resource allocation, because if you want an
right.
entrepreneur program or something, you need to think, either raise a funding for that or divert funding from other places. So they do their own. Now, if I may go just once again go back to the for the teaching and the Ministry of Education. Another thing that's bothering me with like putting in my book and the like developing a curriculum for education system is that, well, there is a lot of, if I may understate, a lot of critics about the quality of education system. And now, if I want teachers to teach economic thinking or economic, let's say economic thinking, then I need to train them how to do that. And then I need to supervise that they do it right. And usually with this kind of large scale of system, it would be a lot of bureaucracy. It would be very hard to ensure that they're doing it all right. If it was like school that they take it, like if I think about not if the education system was more privatized, or maybe not privatized, but
More
decentralized.
competition, right?
Yeah,
Decentralizing.
decentralized. Then it would be up to the parents, first of all, to decide if they want that. It would be up to the schools to do that. And the parents themselves, and like the board maybe of the school, they could supervise it. It would be easier to do that. And I actually got a lot of critiques for even just going to speak at a committee, because
Who's critical?
some of my followers, they will say, huh, you're going there, you're trying to teach them, are you sure they're going to do that right, to teach economics? We're gonna end up with a lot of little Marxists if we
Yeah,
just
that's a
decide to teach
legitimate fear.
economics.
It's better than be ignorant than Marxist. That's why I said Israel has more hope, because America, they go to university, they come out Marxists. Here, they come out here more, they're ignorant. Okay, how's this for a suggestion? What about like an after-school chug?
There are already. Yeah.
Entrepreneurial after-school chug game.
Also that, also
Can you make an
economics.
introduction for me? I would love to see how I can get involved. Maybe open up a branch in Pardes Khana where I live.
I will look. I will look. I
Awesome,
will
great.
send you some links.
Okay, cool. Because I think that's what it. And then I think through that, parents talk like, oh, they go to entrepreneurial thing. Oh, they're doing cool things. Other people, they're learning more independence, personal responsibility. And I think parents love that stuff. And I think I think there's going to be like you're an economist, like Malcolm Gladwell's tipping point, right? I think you gotta get to that tipping point where enough people are talking about it, know about it, just like everyone knows judo is a very popular chug, but maybe only 1%, 1% of kids go to it, but everyone knows judo
Yeah.
exists everywhere in Israel. It's extremely popular. That we get to a point that maybe 1% of the students go, but everyone's, oh, there's this entrepreneur chug. And you got to get to that tipping point where we get that knowledge, and then it will just feed itself. And then these are the people, God willing, will go into government and become teachers, and we can self-fulfill more liberty and freedom by
Yeah.
educating the parents and the children together.
Actually, after Alea Rock in 2013, we were hoping that we could start something like a youth movement, a freedom, but we didn't have any funding for that.
How much
Because
do you need to get that off the ground?
now I don't know, but back then it was too much for us, and we were like fundless.
Right,
And
funless.
yeah,
Not
fundless.
funless, fundless. Yes. Yeah, that's a different time. Okay, I would like to learn about what you're actually professionally what you're doing. So you said that you're involved with your study economics within the Arab Israeli community, particularly education. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So what does that? Before we actually get into, I'm very curious what you've learned and what we can learn from that. What does that even mean? Like, what does your day look like?
Okay. My day, well, it's really flexible, because I work sometimes from home, sometimes from the office. A lot of meetings with government officials and with leading figures in the Arab community,
Mhm.
and a lot of data.
Mhm. A
A
lot
lot
of
of
data.
data. Yeah.
Are you a num? Are you? Do you have to be a number nerd to be in economics?
No, you would have to love. You would have to love to explain human behavior.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
what people don't understand what economics is. I tell people they think economics is like numbers and data and economy, but it's
No,
the study of human behavior. Is what, how do you get someone to do something?
There are a lot of economists who do not deal with data, only with theory, and a lot of with just like I said, human behavior. And what I do, you don't have even to like those dealing with numbers, but you need to have some kind of a grasp of models, because I can use my research assistants to go to the research room and get all the data, but I need to figure out with my colleagues what is the model that we want to explain to you. No, what is the model we want to use to explain what we see in reality. But I love numbers. It's really like fun for me, and I feel like I'm getting really attached to the observation that I'm seeing, because I see a lot of people for like their almost entire lives, and I see, oh, you finished here school, and here you finished, oh, you got married. And so I can see their life. I don't know who they are. The data is of course
Anonymous.
yeah, and we have fictional numbers for the just to identify in the data itself. I don't know who's who, but it's really nice. So usually we just meet up, and once we have our research topic, then we need to clear up our research questions, and then figure out the methodology, and then start looking at the data. And also because we know that the data itself doesn't give the entire picture, then we have a lot of meetings with a lot of people. So it's also very, very nice to work, and I get to know a lot of really nice and really great people to work with.
Awesome. So what does it look like to actually study the Arab population as opposed to the Jewish population in Israel?
Well, the main thing is that our main our vision is to get to policy recommendation to promote the Arab population to integrate in the Israeli economic and social life. Because there are a lot of disparities in economic disparities between the Arab and the Jewish population. And in the long run, it would be really difficult for Israel to maintain like a standard of living when you have these disparities. We also see the influences of these disparities in the violence rate, and in the welfare payments that the government needs to pay to the Arab population. And basically, it would be better off for everyone had the Arab population would integrate good or well in the Israeli economics. So what we mainly do is we try to look for the barriers and to find policy recommendation to remove those barriers that for the Arab population to integrate. And let's say the biggest barrier, or the most prominent explanatory for those disparities is the human capital.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at human capital, it's basically the level of education. And you look and we everyone can see. It's not just, you don't need the data to know that the Arab.
You just need to live here, right?
Excuse me?
You just need to live here.
Yeah, and you see that there are disparities that you see. Maybe in the medical industry, you see a lot of Arabs, but in other industry, other than the education branch, you don't see a lot of Arab in high salary grade of position. And then we start looking like going backward. Why don't they get to high salary? Because they don't have higher education and no training, or like vocational training.
Why don't they have high education is?
And then we got to schools. And you see the disparities in the achievement in schools, which a lot of people say that they come from the socioeconomic background, but it's not just that. It's a lot. It's a lot more. It's the education system. If we say that the Hebrew education system is bad, then the Arab education system is much worse.
Yeah. I understand that.
They
How
have
much of it is cultural that like a lot of cultures don't prioritize education or higher education, let's say. And I know as an example, I read a book by what's his name, Triple Threat. It was about which communities in America do best. One of them were the Jewish community, and they said that one of the three things that you need to have as a group, whatever they asked, one of them wasn't education. She said the reason why she said not education was because the Syrian Jewish community does not believe in traditional education. They do not send their kids to college, and they're extremely wealthy and entrepreneurial and create and build a lot of businesses. And so she said because of that, that education isn't necessary, even though it's strongly correlated, but that's not necessarily the ticket per se. There is a way to be entrepreneurial, create businesses, do great without actually without having strong high school or college education. And so culturally within the Syrian community, and my stepfather is Syrian who moved to Argentina, who lives in Philadelphia, so he's very familiar with the Syrian community. Also, very blue collar. He moved here with no money from Argentina, and he started some businesses, and he's actually doing very well here. I mean, Philadelphia. As an immigrant. No higher education. I don't know even his high school. I don't know. But I think he does because he served in the army in Argentina. So my question is like, do you think how much is education a part or how much is just culture of like what is considered good employment? Because I've spoken to many Arabs here and they say, I was very happy with my blue collar job. I'm very happy building houses. I'm very happy with these things. And why are you trying to force me into, I appreciate it, but like, it's not for me. Some people like the physical work. Some people like starting work early and ending early sometimes, things like that, starting at 5 a.m., be done at 3. And is it wrong maybe to try to force what you and I may think is a proper form of education and maybe career path onto maybe a population that might have other priorities, which is fine as long as they're not intruding on anyone's freedoms. And if there isn't, let's say, unnecessary welfare for people that are able-bodied and can work, and that would go for any population, of course. Do you think maybe we're trying to force people into our way, maybe as opposed to just kind of just accepting some people have other priorities than you and I have?
Okay, so first of all, it's not forcing because no one
Right,
is telling
right.
anyone you
I
should
meant
go
pushing.
this,
No,
you
no,
should go. Okay,
I take that
so
word back. Pushing, maybe
but
we're suggesting,
there's
encouraging.
a huge difference between the Jewish teenager and the Arab teenager, which is the prospect they have for the age of 18.
Mm-hmm.
What does the Jewish teenager have?
Mm-hmm. Did you? Um,
They have
I'm not a
they
Jewish
have
teenager. I didn't grow up here, and my
they
oldest daughter
have
turns
in
11.
Israel,
So.
they have the army as
Right. Mm-hmm.
as their prospect. What does the Arab teenager have? Nothing. So they're just going to the grown-up world, and they need to decide in high school. They need to think they're already about their future. But the Jewish teenager, the Hebrew education system, they have the like the um, before the army, we have the train, the no, examination and everything for the army. So the teenager, the Jewish teenager, they get some kind of assessment. You're good at this, you're good at that. Maybe you could get to there or that in the army, and we have a prospect. Where do we want to go? The Arab teenager, they don't have that. No one tells them. They have no guidance, no information, no access to understanding the labor market. And then there's the peer effect, as you said about the community and the culture. The peer effect is really important. You look at what others do, and you look at the success model that you see in your own community, and this is what you want to do.
Correct.
But maybe if you had other opportunities, maybe if you had a lot of more information, maybe if you had some other kind of prospect outside of your small community, maybe you could have done better in your life. And also when you think about construction, it's like a short-term view, like a myopic view, because what up to what age can you work in construction? If you look at the Arab population and you see the employment rate of men, they are very high up to the age of 45, and then they're declining.
Interesting.
Okay.
That's a fascinating statistic. And is this outside of construction? Is this across industries? Is this a general trend?
It's a general trend.
So it's not just, even if they're not blue collar?
What I said just now is based on data that I took of a representative sample of the Arab population, and I just look regardless where they work, regardless the branch, regardless everything. Just took at I think it was 2019 or 19 or 17, I don't remember exactly, and I just calculated the employment rate for each age. Okay, and then you see that it was pretty robust over the years between 2012 and 2017, that very high employment rates, even higher than Jewish population for the young ages between the 18 and 25, because Jewish the young Jewish, they go to the army, and then
they disappear for a year.
Not everyone, but a lot of them, they travel for a year,
right.
but usually they start the higher education at the age of 21, and for men even 25. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the employment rate at the younger ages, as I said, it's even higher than Jewish counterparts. And after that, basically the same like the Jewish, more or less, not a lot of gaps. But from the age of 45, you see declining, the employment rate declining. And they don't even get, like, I think up to 60, it's almost everyone is getting out of the labor market. Now, I must have a disclaimer, and I would say that everything I say is based on administrative data. Mm-hmm. So if there is anyone who is working and they're not reporting it, like working like black, as we call it, that I can see them.
Right. So I think that should be discussed. I think we should talk about it, because that is an economic thing in itself. Is that I find that if you can get welfare, right, Bituach Leumi, and this goes for everyone, and Corona did this to young people. My friend, she told me all of her friends, she's 24, none of them are working, collecting checks, totally able-bodied. It's disgusting. We're talking about the Jewish population. If you can get Bituach Leumi, if you can get, which is more than you would go get work, and you can do free stuff on the time, and then even actually get work and be paid cash under the table. Now, I think it will limit your career and be able to earn money in the medium and long term for sure. But in that moment, young people don't think medium and long term. Mm-hmm. As a young person myself, no one does. That's why, that's why we eat like crazy until our metabolism hits us in our 30s, and we smoke, coughing from cigarettes really hits us in our 40s, and we start to quit and take things seriously, right? It's human nature. But how much of this is that, like, the government has created this by almost incentivizing, and I would say subsidizing, working in the black market, things that don't improve your skills, don't bring you out public, means you don't pay taxes, you continue to collect welfare and earn aside money, and therefore they never move forward, and they can't even be public what they do. You can't build a business, you can't do anything, you're stuck in a sense, right? So it's...
Well, the negative income tax is kind of a small step towards eliminating that.
What's the negative income tax?
So if you I don't remember the number itself, but you get like incentive to work, and then you get like, you don't pay income tax for the lower income.
The government will even subsidize. They'll throw money on top of it just because you're entering the workforce legally.
Yeah, and then
Is
the
this a current? Sorry to interrupt you. I really want to dig
yeah,
into this for a minute. Is this a current thing going on right now? Like right
yes.
now, if okay, and so would you say that people are incentivizing to get off welfare and go get a job that uh, so if you're on welfare, plus you're making, let's say, I don't know, 7,000 shekels, 8,000 shekels a month in the black market, you're not paying any taxes on it, nothing. Lucky people. Is that still more than if they were to go and get a job not black market, which might pay less because the employer doesn't have to pay 30% taxes on it, and
Well,
the negative
I
income
don't
tax?
think I don't think that the negative income tax is focused on people who earn a lot in the black market. It's
Right, you
mostly
won't be able to close. What how do you define a lot?
7,000 shekels is more than minimum wage. So I
Right.
think if
Right, for
the
the black market too, right?
yeah.
Especially. So whatever, 4,000, 3,000. I'm
So,
just trying to get an idea, but
but it's like trying to eliminate the substitute effect between the Bituach Leumi and going to work.
mhm,
So you are foregoing the Bituach Leumi payments, but then you get the negative income tax. So you're not losing what you could have earned otherwise.
mhm.
And actually, I think that the lower the income tax would be and the flatter and more understandable, then the incentives to not to declare your income would eliminate also.
Mhm. Okay, got it. Cool. Okay, so would you, is that working, by the way? Do you know anything about that? This is the fact, it's actually, it sounds like a good policy.
I didn't read a lot of research about it, but I just saw a few statements telling that saying that it looks like it has a positive effect.
Okay, cool. Irony is the wrong thing word, but like, these are one of the few times the government can spend money and it actually makes more back because they'll eventually be paying taxes and earning more they would have in the black market
Yeah,
plus me.
and also they're
Which is, but
spending.
that's government intervention, which is why I don't necessarily think that it's inconsistent to say go to the government to help educate our children on how to be more independent economically, et cetera, because I think that is the kind of thing that pays for itself. Sometimes we can use the government as incentivization for what we need. If not, then those that are anti it might go against it. Just a thought. I know
Well,
there's a dance there, I don't know
it's
the
like
answer.
on one side you have the negative incentive to go to work with the welfare payments.
Right.
So you're just calling the payments in a different name, and you're just lowering from one side and giving more on the other side. So it's kind of balancing at the I don't know, the lower rate of the income, but as the eligible for the negative income tax, as they earn more, then they get less and less subsidizing.
Got it.
So, but
Got it.
it's like an intervention to
To get them back
eliminate
into
another
at work.
yeah.
But that's great because also as an employer and an entrepreneur myself, being able to have access to more talent and help bring them on and train them is something I'm very attracted to. And of course I'm still paying payroll tax and all that. So I think it's ideally it sounds like a win-win-win. So going back to the Arab community,
Mm-hmm.
um, so other than education, that all right. So 45 days, you find that the workforce that they have very high representation in the workforce. After
Mm-hmm.
45, it starts to slip. Is there anything in lifestyle events that you think changes things? Having children or a grandfather, or maybe they move or moving out of your town or your village, or like, are there any kind of lifestyle things that you see that have a significant effect on the economics and the labor of the Arab sector?
um I can say that there are life events that for men, we don't see a lot of let's say um, jumpings, like in some kind of age that there are low rates, and another age they have high rates. It's like from the age of 18, it's like really high, something like between 60 to 80% employment rate, and then
Hmm.
going up to even 85 in some ages. But For women, you can see that approximate to the ages of giving birth of you see employment rate declining.
Got
And
that their
also,
employment goes down, right? Got it.
yeah, and also for women, you see that employment rates are getting lower by the age of 45 also, but in a really steeper slope.
Much steeper, even more so.
Yeah.
Okay, so why is that? So it's not blue collar related, really, because blue collar is overwhelmingly men. It's not related to physical work per se. What's going on
Uh,
in the Arab sector that at 45 they just stop? There's a
because
huge collapse?
think about the market. If you work in a if you work in a blue collar job and it's physical, then it's like you're getting too old for that. Women, they don't go to construction, but they do go to work jobs that they don't get any skill, and the young girls are coming, so they are cheaper, and so there is a substitution between generations, let's say.
Ah, got it.
And
So
also
the expenses for an older person is
and
their personal
also
expenses are higher.
when you look at the Arab population, you see that they're very concentrated in their own villages and in the small communities, because they usually work at the same place that they're living, because they have lower access to transportation, and for women it's difficult. It's more difficult for the Arab women to work away from home because of cultural barriers,
Ah,
and
okay. Got that. Okay.
and
So how do you
also
overcome that? Because we were talking
uh,
about how much is economic, how much is cultural. Obviously, culture plays a huge aspect, which you said. And here, like economics can say, I won't go travel freely to the big city nearby, right? Some people,
it's
some
not the
cultures going to
free
frown on that.
it's not even the freely, it's even just the roads that they're not as no, I'm sorry, I didn't speak English for a long time.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're saying the
um
roads aren't as good, but that's not stopping someone from driving on
and
them. It's
also
a
the
job, no?
transportation, no, but when you need to go, if we look at public transportation and you need to go to another place to work, because the areas of industries, they're far, in a lot of times they're far from the village, so there were businesses within the village,
Got it.
and for men it's easier, of
Right.
course.
Okay. All right. Let's switch gears back to where Israel's going. So you're getting back into politics. What exactly is the goal here? If you were to say there's some low hanging fruit that we can make very rapid decisions to help Israel become much better economically and a better cost per living, what are the easiest things you think that the government would be able to implement? One. And second question, what do you think can be implemented that would be hard to reverse by protectionist or socialist in the government thereafter?
Well, I think the first, not first, but I think the most important thing now is to deregulate, and this would be, of course, very hard because of lobbyists, but it would be the most, I think, uh, the most like prominent thing that you would do, because deregulation, you can get easy access to to import. You can like lower import taxes, and the taken, how do you say that, like
What? Tekken?
the regulation institute,
Okay. Yeah.
that
Okay.
we have special regulations for Israel
Mhm.
that makes everything
More difficult.
more difficult to import or more difficult to produce, because um, you have to follow a certain regulation which is only for Israel.
I'll give an example. Do you want to give an example? I think people need to
With the
understand how.
T, with the T.
With the staple. That's another good example. I was going to talk about cribs. Uh, you know about cribs?
Oh,
The
no, I
T
don't
one's
know.
good, but that's proof of law. Okay, so there's actually two great examples. They're very different. With the T, that the I can never say it right. Wichetsky, am I saying that right?
Wysocki.
Wysocki, whatever. So it's a huge Israeli tea company. They make good tea. It's great. They didn't want competition. So they regulated, they staple the thread to the thing that you would hold the tea. And they said, if you don't have, you can't import unless you have a staple. And that's
No, other way around.
the opposite, sorry,
The
without a
opposite.
staple. Right, sorry.
Lipton
Right,
has the staple. So
right.
they
So
say
they
it's
wanted to keep
very,
lifting out.
they say it was really dangerous and you
Right.
need to glue it. And if it's not glued, then you cannot import it. Or
Right,
you
which
need
of
to
course,
staple.
hot water also glue and all that, and you put it in. Sounds safe. But I don't know if I'm gonna choke you, but yeah. So that's what I should keep them out. That's what we keep the prices up.
Oh, I having trouble to hear you.
No
Oh,
problem. Can
now
you
it's
hear me now?
okay.
Okay. So right, so that way they could keep prices up and they don't have competition. So the other one is cribs. That's just more about is that so like a lot of standardized cribs according to, let's say, European and American standards, how far apart like the bars can be. Let's say for the cage, it's just a funny word to use when we talk about babies. But they said supposedly the Israeli head is slightly smaller in average than others. So they say, okay, they must be a little bit closer to one another, which means now we can't import like 90% of cribs. So it's like the dumbest thing.
Yep, that's that. And then there's this new thing with the air conditioning regulation that they changed the regulation that you cannot import a certain type of air condition with the old type of the gas, and you need to have the new type of the gas. So, but you need to have the air conditioner. You need to have a technician to put it on and to fix
Oh,
it.
right. Yeah. So
But
stupid.
those technicians, they know only how to work with the old gas, and they do not have a certification for the new gas. So you can import how many air conditioners that you want, but there's no one to put it on.
I mean, or you just don't get someone that's registered.
Yeah, it's like a lacuna in the
which is
Or
why
you
everyone's
have
become so frustrated. It's like, why do I need someone certified to hook up my washing machine?
Okay, wait, there's more. My husband's a hairdresser. Well, he wanted to have his customers get some coffee in-house. So he put a like this water machine, but then they told him he has to have a sink and then to put the waters over there, and it needs to be separated from the water to the wash to the hair wash or something like this. I didn't understand, but it's like he wanted to do something extra for his customers, and now he needs to look what are the regulations that I'm passing now that I need to look for. And another story is that there was this couple, they have a small boutique chocolatier thing, and they work together, but he's a man, she's a woman, and they're married. They have just one bathroom, but the regulation said that if there are all men and women working at the same place, that you have to have separate bathrooms, and so and so and so.
For
And
what?
so.
For two employees? Even if it's not, you
Married.
can't. Even if you weren't married, you can't. How about a full bathroom with a door that locks? And you wait till one person's done.
You see, and according to a bill, there's something like 3,500 pages of regulations that should be deleted. But
Yeah.
what is meant to delete or to deregulate?
So let's walk through I just thought of like 10 more examples of retarded regulations that I'm not going to know. But let's, it's so stupid. They're just so ridiculous. Like the pineapple one's still like my favorite. But what can you like, once you get into like, how hard is it to fight off these lobbyists? I mean, instead of fighting the lobbyists, doesn't it make sense to fight the politicians and just say this person is bought by this? Anyone here has an AC right now, you paid 30% more than you should have and couldn't have got the best energy efficient one because of this politician who's taking money from this organization.
That's
Isn't
what
that the
we're
kind of,
doing.
that's what the attack needs to be, right?
That's what I just got along with everyone, but that's a lot of what we're doing now, because you can see in this reform with the agriculture reform, and you have the ministers who try to promote it, and you have those who try to oppose to it. And you look at those who are opposing, and you see who is their electorate, who is backing them to oppose. It's like I don't remember. I think it was Miki Zohar, Knesset member Miki Zohar, and he was opposing to open up to free the market of eggs. There are, if you want to grow a chicken and to like sell eggs, then you have a quota that's the maximum we can sell. And he was opposing to free the market from the quotas. And then you look and you see, oh, he has a license to produce eggs.
Are what billboard ads of just that?
There were
He's in Likud, right? A lot of protectionism in Likud. I talked to the cab drivers too. It's like it's the same thing. I mean, I understand. It's just so everyone's getting screwed for a few people.
But you see it in the agriculture reform now. You see who are the politicians.
No, but you see, and I pay attention, and I didn't see. The problem is the public doesn't see. You need to call people out, like publicly. Like there should be billboards bought by. You're paying double for eggs because of Miki Zohar. One billboard, you're paying for your Mazgan costs 40% more because of these two politicians that are in bed with this. And then the media comes, they have to address it. And they have to address that relationship if you take a billboard.
I don't think so, because you already see that people are trying to like protect. They don't see the connection between the protectionism and the protectionism, not protectionism,
right?
Which is kind of
similar,
and higher prices.
Right, people don't see that, but I mean, I think
they don't see that, and they're a lot of people are too already convinced that it's so different in Israel, that we are different than other places, that we need those regulations, we need that kind of stuff. Or if they if it's like another kind of with the air conditioner, I think it's never mind, I wouldn't say something I'm not sure of. No. So not, it's not that you weren't familiar. People, the media, they don't even target it, and because even Miki Zohar wasn't targeted because it didn't serve the cause. Because if the media would have targeted Miki Zohar with the chicken, with the eggs, then they would have to target every other egg producers.
We should just go over and egg him in person. Just throw eggs at him. The media will cover it, and then you say why. I do not encourage throwing eggs at anyone.
No.
That's not very funny.
So it's a lot of paradigm changing, because we're used to have all those Soviets in Israel.
Right.
Obviously that we have the egg Soviet. I call them Soviets in purpose.
I know.
And
I think you're being generous.
When I teach microeconomics and also macro, I'm trying to provoke the students. So I'm starting to talk about all those organizations, and I'm like, welcome to the Soviet Union of Israel.
Right, exactly.
Did you know there's also a Soviet for for peanuts?
No, you're kidding, right?
Yep. No, I'm not. There is.
That's fun. That's fun.
It's a lot.
That's
When I was in Alea Rock, I learned a lot about everything. About it was like eyes opening. I was I felt like I'm starting to realize in what kind of centralized economy we're living in. And people think that Israel is capitalist and Israel is free market.
only the tech is, because
And
thank God that came after all. I mean, even
only
then
the
it's
what?
regulated. The tech companies, high tech.
Techcom, yeah.
That's because they came after all of those bastards.
Yep, yep.
And I think
And
the government understands it's the golden goose that keeps it's the goose that keeps giving golden eggs.
yeah, but you
But
still
every industry can be a
you have
a goose that
yeah,
gives golden eggs.
every industry could be that. And if we'll let's talk about the cannabis,
Yeah,
okay?
and then after that,
Okay.
let's wrap it up.
No, because it's like that.
Right.
Cannabis is there is a market for cannabis in Israel, as everyone
Yes.
knows. They
Right.
called it medical cannabis, but there's not a
But
lot of
it's not a
difference
lot of medical.
between cannabis and medical cannabis, as you can sell it in pharmacy and call it medical, or call
Right.
someone and
Medical means
not.
government approved.
Yeah.
That's what it
So,
is.
but if you look at the cannabis market, at the producers,
Right.
it's like a cartel because because you have very few producers in Israel, and all of them have to have a license from the Israeli government. And also, it's illegal. There are a lot of regulation about using the parts of the plant which are not psychoactive. And those parts of the plant they could be used for the industry of textile and for construction, and is heavily regulated. And think about how the Israeli cannabis is the exported is oh, it's good.
I
It's
know.
very
Israel's doing very good technology with the cannabis. You have the most
yeah.
corrupt people like Ehud Barak,
And
who
Ehud Olmert.
and Ehud Olmert. Yes, they're the two worst.
Yeah.
Why the worst is Ehud Olmert's opinion on the Jerusalem Post. It's like the only reason why I stopped reading them. So it's like ridiculous.
So,
The two most
you
corrupt politicians.
and you
Ehud
see,
Olmert allegedly a pedophile.
and no one is talking about the relation between the like the tone, how do you say it, the capital and government
Right.
relations.
Right. Corporatism. Yeah.
Yeah, no one is talking about that. This is good because they're from the right side of the map. And but think about legalization, okay? Set aside the saving on the expense of the violence and just the police work to find those kind of people who just have a joint in their hands.
Yeah, it's a huge
that.
waste of resources.
A huge waste of resources. And also think about the industry that could thrive here with the
I know,
technology that
I
we
know,
have
I
here.
know, I know.
And
It's
so
so frustrating.
yeah, it's like even set aside the benefits from the smoking, okay, the medical benefits and also the recreational benefits, which could be treated as medical also. It's like when you go and you have this get together with friends and you take a glass of wine or you have some beers. It's okay. No one says anything about that, and no one looks at you in a funky eye, and no one thinks that you're a junkie, and no one thinks that you should be in jail.
Right.
Neither the one who sold you the wine and the beer.
Right.
But when we get to cannabis, it is.
There is a generational stigma. That's not just Israel, by the way. There is a generational stigma that will take some time. But I think at the end of the day is if you should be able to put in whatever you want to do in the privacy of your home, whatever you want to put in your body is up to you. Period. Or not put in your body. Exactly
as long
right.
as you're not hurting anyone else or
Right.
coercing anyone else, it's your decision. It's like I see those stickers for too much sugar or too
Too much salt, too much sugar on everything.
Yeah.
And it's like
So okay, I know. I'm taking the risk and I'm doing this. I want
Right.
you
Right.
do
Put in
whatever you
for,
feel.
right. Allow more. If you want to put you want to put labels on information is great, right?
Yeah.
When they start withholding it from you. Edith, how can people follow you and know what you're up to next politically when we see you in the Knesset?
And well, first of all, you can follow me on Facebook, Idit Kalisher,
Hmm.
and
Well, all
also
this will be in the comments in the description and the description.
I have this Facebook group, which is a bit sleepy now, but there is a lot of context text that I wrote in the past about economic thinking for children, for everyone, and it's called in Hebrew, כלכלה לא למבוגרים בלבד, which is economics not just for grown-ups or not just for adults. And and also I have the Facebook page of my book, Bayar.
Awesome.
Yeah, and with Facebook you can translate everything I'm writing.
Yeah, that's what's great. It's so easy to translate. Awesome.
Yeah.
Edith, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck in your success in the Knesset.
Thank you.